I thought I'd scored the deal of a lifetime when I found that cabin rental for winter break. $200 for the whole week smack in the middle of nowhere, Vermont. The listing showed this rustic little place surrounded by pine trees, and the owner seemed chill about everything. No security deposit, no questions asked. Looking back, those should have been red flags right there. My buddy and I rolled up to the property around sunset on a Friday in late January. The driveway hadn't been plowed in what looked like days, so we had to hike the last quarter mile through knee-deep snow. My friend was complaining the whole way, dragging his duffel bag behind him like a little kid. The cabin itself looked exactly like the photos, which was honestly surprising. 2 stories, dark wood exterior, smoke coming from the chimney. Wait, smoke from the chimney? We stopped dead in our tracks. The owner said the place would be empty and cold when we got there. My buddy suggested maybe they'd sent someone to warm it up for us, which seemed like a stretch for a $200 rental, but whatever. We were freezing our asses off, so we weren't about to complain about a head start on the heating situation. The front door was unlocked, which the owner had mentioned in his last message. We stepped inside and immediately something felt wrong. There were boots by the door still wet, a coat hanging, coffee mug on the kitchen counter still warm to the touch. I called out, thinking maybe a caretaker was still around. Nothing. My friend checked the downstairs while I headed up. The master bedroom looked lived in, not like someone had just tied it up, but actually lived in. There were clothes in the drawers, toiletries in the bathroom, even a bookmark and a novel on the nightstand. I grabbed my phone to call the owner. But of course there was no signal. Middle of nowhere problems. We decided to wait it out, figured whoever was staying there before us just hadn't cleared out yet. My buddy started a fire in the living room while I tried to make sense of the situation. That's when I found the journal. It was sitting on the coffee table, leather-bound and worn. The last entry was dated 2 days ago. The handwriting was shaky, barely legible. It talked about hearing things at night. Scratching sounds, footsteps on the roof. The writer mentioned feeling watched constantly, even when they knew they were alone. The sun was completely down by then, and we still hadn't seen another soul. My friend wanted to bail, drive back to campus and call it a loss. But the snow had started coming down hard, like couldn't see 5 feet in front of you hard. We were stuck. We made a plan to lock all the doors, push furniture against them if we had to, and just wait until morning. The temperature kept dropping, and even with the fire going, we could see our breath inside the cabin. Around 11, the power cut out. Complete darkness except for the fireplace. My buddy was pacing back and forth, checking his phone every 2 minutes like the signal would magically appear. I was trying to stay calm, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. That's when we heard it for the first time. 3 deliberate knocks on the back door, slow, methodical, like whoever was out there wanted us to know they were being patient. We both froze. My friend grabbed the biggest kitchen knife he could find while I moved toward the window, trying to see anything through the falling snow. The knocking came again, 3 times, same rhythm, same intensity. I pressed my face against the cold glass, squinting into the darkness. Nothing. Just white powder swirling in the wind and dark tree shapes barely visible through the storm. Then the knocking moved. It shifted to the side of the house, that same 3-knock pattern. We weren't dealing with wind or branches hitting the structure. This was intentional. This was someone circling the cabin, announcing their presence at each wall. My buddy was gripping that knife so hard his knuckles had gone white. We killed all the lights from the fireplace, threw snow on it until it was just smoldering embers. If someone was out there, we didn't want them seeing us clearly through the windows. The pattern continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. 3 knocks on each side of the cabin, moving in a clockwise circle, over and over. Then it stopped. Complete silence except for the wind howling through the trees. We sat in that darkness, backs against the wall, not moving, barely breathing. Every creak of the old wood made us jump. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps. Neither of us slept. We just waited for sunrise, watching the windows for any sign of movement. When the first light finally broke through the storm clouds, my friend was up immediately. He wanted to see what we were dealing with, wanted proof that we weren't losing our minds. I followed him outside, and that's when the real terror set in. The footprints were everywhere, deep impressions in the fresh snow circling the entire cabin. But these weren't random tracks. They were methodical, purposeful loops that had been walked over and over throughout the night. We followed them, counting at least 15 complete circles around the building. But here's what made my stomach drop. Every single loop started and ended at the same point. The crawlspace entrance under the front porch. My buddy got down on his hands and knees, shining his phone light into the darkness under the cabin. He went completely still, and when he looked back at me, his face had gone pale. There was a sleeping bag down there, canned food, water bottles, a lantern, books and magazines stacked in the corner. Someone had been living under the cabin, and based on the setup, they'd been there for a while. Weeks, maybe months. We didn't even go back inside for our stuff. Just ran to the car and started digging it out of the snow with our bare hands. Took us almost an hour to clear enough to drive, and the whole time I kept expecting someone to come out of those woods. We got out of there, sliding all over the unpaved driveway, hitting the main road, going way too fast for the conditions. Neither of us said a word during the drive. We were both too shaken to even process what had happened. When we finally got cell service, I called the owner. He acted confused, said the cabin had been empty for months, that we must have the wrong property. But I had his emails, his confirmation, everything. The cops took our report seriously, thank God. What they found made everything so much worse. The crawl space wasn't just lived in, it had been modified. Someone had installed insulation, rigged up a small heater, even put in shelving. This wasn't some homeless person seeking temporary shelter. This was someone who'd made it a home. They found a collection of photos down there too. Photos of previous guests taken through the windows. People eating dinner, people sleeping, people who had no idea they were being watched. They found the journal writer's car abandoned about 3 miles away, covered in snow. She'd been a grad student who'd rented the cabin 6 weeks before us. She's still missing. The police searched those woods for days and found 2 more modified crawl spaces in abandoned cabins within a 5-mile radius. Whoever was doing this had multiple spots moving between them, watching people who came to stay. The owner claimed he knew nothing, but they found records showing he'd been renting out that cabin despite knowing someone was squatting there. He'd take the money, give out the address, and let whatever happened happen. He's facing charges now, but they never found the person who was living under those cabins. Sometimes I wonder if they're still out there, still circling some other rental in the middle of nowhere, waiting for the next group of people to show up. My old man had been planning this ice fishing trip since October. Just the 2 of us, his beat-up pickup truck, and a week at his buddy's cabin on the Minnesota side of Lake Superior. I was 17 and honestly would have rather been literally anywhere else, but you don't say no when your dad gets excited about something. We're talking about a dude who watches fishing shows like their playoff games and studies water temperature charts for fun. We headed out on a Tuesday morning in early February. The lake was frozen solid, easily 3 feet of ice according to the locals. Dad's buddy had given us coordinates for a spot where the walleye were supposedly going crazy. We drove out about a mile from shore, the truck bouncing over the uneven ice, and set up our shanty. It was one of those pop-up shelters, nothing fancy, but it cut the wind, and that's all that mattered when it's -15 outside. By noon we hadn't caught a damn thing. My dad was still in his element though, telling me stories about when he used to do this with his old man back in the 80s. I was half paying attention, mostly just trying to stay warm and wondering how much longer we'd be out there. That's when I noticed something that hadn't been there before. About 100 yards out there was another shanty. I'm talking a proper ice fishing house, the kind that looks like a small shed on skis. The weird part was it definitely hadn't been there when we set up. The whole lake had been empty except for us. I was sure of it. I pointed it out to my dad and he got this confused look on his face. He'd been watching the ice the whole time. Couldn't figure out how he'd missed someone driving out and setting up. We decided to check it out. Maybe say hi, see if they were having better luck than us. My dad's always been friendly like that. Thinks every stranger is just a friend he hasn't met yet. As we got closer, walking across the ice with our cleats on, something felt off. There were no tracks leading to the shanty. No snowmobile trail, no truck tracks, no footprints. Nothing. Just this structure sitting out there like it had appeared out of thin air. The door was slightly open, swinging in the wind. My dad called out, his voice getting swallowed by the vast emptiness of the frozen lake. No response. He pulled the door wider and we both just stood there, trying to process what we were seeing. The inside was set up for fishing. 2 holes drilled through the ice, lines hanging down into the dark water below. There was a portable heater running, a thermos sitting on a small table, steam still rising from the open top. Fresh bait in a bucket, a half-eaten sandwich on a paper plate. Someone had been there minutes ago, maybe seconds. The heater was putting out warmth. The coffee was hot enough to burn your tongue, but there was no one inside. My dad picked up the thermos, checking if it was real, like maybe we were both hallucinating. It was real. Everything was real. So where was the person? I stepped further inside, looking for any clue about who owned this setup. That's when I heard it. Faint at first, so quiet I thought it might be the wind playing tricks. But then it got louder. Screaming. Someone was screaming, and it was coming from under the ice, right beneath our feet. My dad heard it too. His face went from confused to terrified in about half a second. The screaming wasn't random either. It was desperate, panicked. The sound of someone who knew they were dying. We both dropped to our knees, pressing our ears against the ice, trying to pinpoint exactly where it was coming from. The sound seemed to move, traveling under us like whatever was down there was swimming, trying to find a way up. My dad heard it too. His face went from confused to terrified in about half a second. The screaming wasn't random either. It was desperate, panicked, the sound of someone who knew they were dying. We both dropped to our knees, pressing our ears against the ice, trying to pinpoint exactly where it was coming from. The sound seemed to move, traveling under us like whatever was down there was swimming, trying to find a way up. The rescue team took 45 minutes to get there, longest 45 minutes of my life. The screaming continued for maybe 20 of those minutes. Then it started getting weaker. Then it stopped completely. By the time the rescue squad arrived with their equipment, there was only silence. They brought sonar, underwater cameras, divers in cold water suits. They drilled holes, sent people down into that freezing water, searched for over 6 hours. They found nothing. No body, no evidence anyone had been under the ice. The water was crystal clear. Visibility was perfect, but there was nothing there. One of the divers said it was impossible. If someone had been under there, they would have found them. Bodies don't just disappear in water that cold. They sink, they float. They don't vanish. The shanty though, that was real. They ran the registration and found out it belonged to a guy who'd been reported missing 3 weeks earlier after going ice fishing alone. His truck had been found on the shore, keys still in the ignition, but no sign of him. The assumption had been that he fell through thin ice somewhere and the body would turn up in spring when everything thawed. But here's where it gets disturbing. 2 weeks after our incident, another fisherman reported the exact same thing. Same shanty, same location, same fresh coffee steaming in the thermos, and the same screaming from under the ice. Rescue teams responded, found nothing. Then it happened again a month later. Different fishermen, same story. Each time that shanty appeared out of nowhere, set up like someone had just stepped out for a minute. The local authorities tried everything. They attempted to tow the shanty off the ice, but the next day it was back. They tried to sink it, drill holes in the floor, make it uninhabitable. Still kept showing up. They eventually closed off that entire section of the lake, put up warnings, told people to stay away. But the reports kept coming. Every few weeks during fishing season, someone would call in about the shanty and the screaming. My dad and I. He sold all his ice fishing gear that spring, said he was done with the sport. Sometimes late at night, when it's really quiet, I swear I can still hear that screaming. The sound of someone trapped in freezing water, pounding on the ice, begging for help that'll never come. They never found that missing fisherman's body, never figured out what was really happening out there. The lake keeps its secrets, and some things aren't meant to be understood. Spring break of my sophomore year, my roommates and I decided to hit up a ski resort in Colorado. None of us had money for the fancy places, so we spent hours searching for something affordable. That's when we found this lodge online. The photos looked decent, the reviews were mostly positive, and the price was almost too good to be true. $50 a night per person, lift tickets included. We should have known better, but we were broke college kids, so we jumped on it. The drive out there took forever. We left campus on a Thursday afternoon. The 4 of us crammed into my roommate's car with all our gear. By the time we rolled up to the lodge, it was almost midnight and we were all exhausted. The place was bigger than the photos suggested. This massive 3-story building that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 70s. There were only 3 other cars in the parking lot, which seemed weird for peak season. The owner met us at the door before we even knocked. Guy probably in his early 60s, wearing a flannel shirt and an unsettling smile that showed too many teeth. He acted like he'd been waiting specifically for us, kept saying how excited he was to have young people staying at his lodge. Something about the way he said young people made my skin crawl, but I brushed it off as exhaustion. He gave us the grand tour, showing off the common areas and dining room, before taking us upstairs to our rooms. We'd booked 2 rooms on the 2nd floor, girls in one, guys in the other. That's when one of my roommates noticed something strange. The doors had regular locks on the inside like normal, but there were also heavy-duty deadbolts on the outside. The kind you'd use to lock someone in, not keep someone out. When she asked about it, his smile got even wider. He laughed it off, said they'd had problems with guests sneaking between rooms in the past, that it was just a security measure. The explanation didn't make any sense, but we were too tired to argue. We agreed to meet up for breakfast and headed to our respective rooms. I crashed immediately, didn't even bother unpacking. The next morning we hit the slopes early. The skiing was actually pretty solid, way better than we expected for the price. We spent the whole day out there trying to get our money's worth, pushing ourselves on the harder runs. By the time we got back to the lodge around 6, we were exhausted and starving. That's when we noticed things had changed. There were more cars in the lot now, maybe 7 or 8 total. But when we walked into the lodge, it was dead silent. No sounds from other rooms, no people in the common areas, nobody in the dining room. Just the owner sitting in the lobby reading a newspaper. He'd been waiting for us. That smile appeared again when he saw us come through the door. We grabbed food from the kitchen and ate in our rooms, too tired to socialize. I fell asleep around 10, but something woke me up around 2 in the morning. A sound outside our door, like someone sliding something underneath. I got up to check and found a piece of paper folded small and tight. My hands were shaking as I unfolded it. The note was handwritten in messy, desperate scrawl. Don't let him lock you in. Check the basement. Get out now. No signature, no other information. Just those sentences that made my blood run cold. I woke up my roommates immediately, showed them the note. One of them thought it was someone messing with us, maybe a prank. Another wasn't so sure, and neither was I. We snuck across the hall and got the girls, showed them the note. One wanted to leave right then, pack our stuff and bounce. But someone convinced us to at least check out the basement first, see if there was any real danger or if this was just someone trying to scare us. The basement door was in the kitchen, tucked behind a pantry shelf. We had to move boxes of supplies to even reach it, which told us the owner definitely didn't want people going down there. The door was unlocked though, which was either a good sign or a really bad one. We crept down the stairs as quietly as possible, using our phone lights to see. The smell hit us first, damp and musty, but also something chemical, like cleaning supplies mixed with something organic and rotting. The basement was finished, which was the first shock. Not a storage area or utility room, but actual living space. There were mattresses on the floor, 8 or 9 of them arranged in rows. Chains bolted to the walls. A mini fridge in the corner humming quietly. Then we saw the board. A huge cork board taking up most of one wall, covered in photographs. Dozens of them, all young people around our age. Some looked like vacation photos, people smiling at ski resorts. Others were clearly taken without the subjects knowing, shots through windows. People walking to their cars, candid moments that no one should have been photographing. At the bottom of the board was a collection of newspaper clippings, missing persons reports from the last 5 years, all from ski resort towns in Colorado. 12 people total, all between the ages of 19 and 25, all last seen at budget lodges in the area. I recognized one of the faces from the photographs on the board. A girl who'd been all over the news 2 years ago, vanished without a trace during spring break. One of my friends found something worse. A filing cabinet in the corner, filled with folders. Each folder had a name, dates, and detailed notes. Notes about habits, schedules, when people left for the slopes when they came back. Some folders had photos of driver's licenses and credit cards. Others had keys, probably copied from guests' belongings while they were out skiing. We didn't stick around to see more. We ran back upstairs, trying to stay quiet but moving fast. That's when we heard it. The sound of metal sliding into place, heavy locks being engaged. The owner was in the hallway, moving from door to door, locking them from the outside. We could hear him whistling while he worked, taking his time, making sure each bolt was secure. One of my roommates started pounding on our door, screaming for him to let us out. He didn't respond, just kept moving down the hall. We could hear other voices now too, coming from the rooms around us. Other people he'd locked in, probably the owners of those cars outside. They were begging, pleading, some of them crying. How long had they been here? One of my friends made the call that saved us. He grabbed a chair and smashed our window, not caring about the noise anymore. We were 2 stories up, but there was a lower section of roof directly below us. We climbed out one by one, moving fast. The roof was covered in ice and snow, and we had to move carefully to avoid sliding off. We dropped down onto that lower roof section, then had to jump about 12 feet into a snowbank below. One of us landed wrong and definitely hurt their ankle, but the adrenaline kept everyone moving. We ran to the car, the only one we'd parked facing out. Thank God we hadn't left the keys in our rooms. We peeled out of that parking lot, fishtailing on the ice, not caring if he heard us leaving. I called 911 from the first gas station we found, about 20 miles down the mountain. Told them everything, the basement, the bod, the locked doors, the people we'd heard screaming. The police raided the place the next morning. They found the owner trying to load people into a van out back. 7 people were locked in those rooms. Some of them had been there for over a week. The basement investigation turned up evidence linking him to at least 9 of the missing persons cases. He'd been running this operation for almost 6 years, targeting broke college kids who couldn't afford the nice resorts. The people in those rooms told horrifying stories. He would lock them in at night, bring them food during the day, tell them they couldn't leave until they worked off their debt from staying at the lodge. Some of them he'd kept for weeks, moving them to different properties he owned across the state. The ones who tried to escape or fight back were never seen again. They are still searching the woods around that lodge. Every few months they find something new, clothing, personal items, things that belonged to people who went missing years ago. The owner won't talk, won't tell them where the bodies are or how many people he actually killed. He just sits in his cell, smiling that same unsettling smile. I still have nightmares about that place. About what would have happened if we hadn't found that note. If we hadn't checked the basement. If my friend hadn't broken that window. We would have been on that board. Just another collection of photos and newspaper clippings. Just another group of kids who went on spring break and never came home.